Right. So here's a fun fact for you. Brexit happened. In case you've been living under a rock or in some sort of political time warp, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union back in 2016. We actually left in 2020, and supposedly, that was that. Case closed. Decision made. Move on. Except, plot twist, apparently nobody told the Lib Dems or a chunk of Labour MPs that the debate was over, because they just voted to essentially try to reverse Brexit by creating a new customs union with the EU. And 13 Labour MPs broke ranks to support it, forcing Keir Starmer to clarify his position faster than a politician caught in a scandal. This is British politics at its finest. Folks, 6 years after Brexit, we're still having the same arguments, still fighting the same battles, and still pretending that we've all moved on when clearly absolutely nobody has moved on at all. Quick favor. If you're fascinated by the never-ending Brexit saga and want to stay updated on every ridiculous twist and turn, hit that subscribe button and smash the notifications bell. Over 94% of you watching haven't subscribed yet. It's free, takes literally 2 seconds, and helps us keep covering this political circus. Cheers if you did. Now, back to the chaos. So let's set the scene properly, because this story has layers like a particularly complicated onion that makes everyone cry. Sir Ed Davey and the Liberal Democrats tabled what's called a 10-minute rule motion in the Commons. For those who don't speak Westminster, that's a procedure that allows an MP to make a short speech proposing a new law. It's usually symbolic. It rarely goes anywhere. It's political theatre more than serious legislation. But here's where it gets interesting. The Lib Dems call for a vote on creating a new EU and UK customs union, essentially unwinding one of the key aspects of Brexit, and they challenge Keir Starmer to give his MPs a free vote on it. That's political chess right there. Put the Prime Minister in a position where either he whips his MPs to vote against something that many of them privately support, or he lets them vote freely and risks looking like he's going soft on Brexit. And guess what happened? 13 Labour MPs decided that party loyalty could take a back seat for the day and voted in favour of the motion. Now, 13 might not sound like a lot when Labour has a massive majority, but symbolically, it's massive. These aren't just random backbenchers nobody's heard of. We're talking about serial hard-left rebels like Richard Bergen and Bel Reboati, people who've made careers out of disagreeing with their own party leadership. But we're also talking about Peter Lamb from the 2024 intake, a new MP who's already willing to defy the whip on a major issue. And Dame Meg Hillier, a senior select committee chairwoman who definitely knows the political implications of what she's doing. These aren't people who stumbled into the wrong lobby by accident. They voted for this deliberately, knowing full well it would create headlines and headaches for Starmer. But here's where the drama really kicks in. The vote ended in a tie. 100 votes to 100. In Westminster, when there's a tie, the Speaker or Deputy Speaker gets a casting vote to break the deadlock. And Deputy Speaker Caroline Noakes, who just happens to be a former Tory minister and a Remain supporter, casts her vote in favour of allowing the motion to proceed to further debate. She justified it by saying she was following precedent, which states that a casting vote should allow for further debate rather than shut down discussion. Technically correct, which as we all know, is the best kind of correct when you're trying to cause maximum political chaos while maintaining plausible deniability. So now this motion, which was supposed to be a bit of symbolic grandstanding by the Lib Dems, is actually going to another debate and vote. It's almost certainly going to fail when it comes back because Labour MPs will be whipped to vote against it, but the damage is done. The message has been sent. There are Labour MPs willing to publicly back the idea of unwinding Brexit, despite all the protestations from the leadership that this is absolutely not what they are doing. It's the political equivalent of saying you're definitely not thinking about your ex while simultaneously liking all their Instagram posts and accidentally driving past their house every day. And speaking of the leadership, let's talk about the absolute mess Keir Starmer and his team have made of this issue recently. They've been desperately trying to distance themselves from the idea of rejoining a customs union, and they are doing such a spectacularly bad job of it that you'd think they were trying to draw attention to it. It emerged recently that a number 10 advisor suggested rejoining the customs union back in September as a way to boost the economy. Now, advisors float ideas all the time. That's what they are paid for. But when it leaks out, and the government hasn't properly prepared a response, it looks like they are secretly planning something they are publicly denying. It's political incompetence of the highest order. Then, last week, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary, gave an interview where he spoke warmly about the idea of rejoining a customs union. He was asked directly if he'd like to see the UK in a customs union, and his response was beautiful in its ambiguity. "That is not currently our policy," he said. "That's not currently where we are." Notice the word currently doing some very heavy lifting there. It's not our policy now, but who knows about the future. He then went on to praise how Turkey benefits from being in a customs union with the EU and seeing growth in their economy. For anyone paying attention, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement of staying out of the customs union. That's a politician leaving the door open while pretending the door is definitely closed. Keir Starmer had to rush out and clarify the government position faster than you can say political damage control. He insisted that Labour would be sticking to its manifesto, which pledged to strengthen ties with Brussels without returning to the customs union, single market, or freedom of movement. "The position we are taking has been clearly set out in the manifesto, and then we've been following it," he said, in the tone of a man who's absolutely fed up with having to explain the same thing over and over again because his colleagues keep going off script. It's like being the designated driver trying to corral your drunk mates who keep wandering off and starting fights with random people on the street. But here's a fundamental problem that Starmer can't escape. A significant portion of his party, his MPs, his members, and his voters never wanted Brexit in the first place. They voted Remain. They campaigned for Remain. They think Brexit was a catastrophic mistake that's made Britain poorer, weaker, and more isolated. And now that they're in government with a massive majority, they're looking at the economic situation, the stagnant growth, the trade barriers, the paperwork, the costs, and they're thinking that maybe, just maybe, we should reconsider this whole Brexit thing. That's a completely understandable position to take, even if you disagree with it. But it's also completely incompatible with what Starmer promised during the election campaign. Labour's entire electoral strategy was built on accepting Brexit and moving on. Don't reopen old wounds. Don't relitigate the referendum. Focus on making Brexit work better rather than trying to reverse it. That strategy worked. They won a landslide. But now they're in government, and the economic reality of Brexit is hitting them in the face like a wet fish, and some of their MPs are starting to think that maybe we should talk about this. Except they can't talk about it because it would blow up their entire political positioning. It's a trap of their own making, and there's no easy way out. And the Conservatives are absolutely loving this. Dame Priti Patel, the shadow foreign secretary, came out swinging with accusations that joining a customs union would be a complete betrayal of the referendum result from 2016. She said that following David Lammy's comments and now Labour MPs failing to stand against a customs union, Keir Starmer must commit to never trying to take Britain into the EU by the back door. It's perfect opposition politics. Force the government to repeatedly commit to something that a chunk of their own party disagrees with, creating internal tension and making them look divided and incompetent. The Tories might be struggling in the polls, but they can still recognize a political opportunity when it presents itself on a silver platter. The Lib Dems are also having an absolute field day with this. O. Pinkerton, the Europe spokesman who tabled the motion, pointed out before the vote that there was debate on this issue within Starmer's own party and cabinet, and that the vote would be on a knife edge. Government sources denied this before the vote, saying it was nonsense, and then the vote literally ended in a tie. That's what we call being spectacularly wrong. Ed Davey and the Lib Dems know they are not going to actually reverse Brexit through this 10-minute rule bill. They are not delusional, but they are successfully putting Labour on the spot, forcing them to confront their internal divisions, and keeping the Brexit debate alive when Starmer desperately wants it dead and buried. Priti Patel also went after the Lib Dems directly, saying they've never moved on from a Brexit referendum nearly a decade ago and will never stop trying to reopen debates of the past, whatever the cost, when the rest of the country has long since moved on. She accused them of wanting to turn the clock back rather than focus on difficult decisions about welfare spending and living within our means. It's effective rhetoric, even if it's not entirely accurate. The country hasn't actually moved on from Brexit. We're still arguing about it constantly. Every economic problem gets blamed on Brexit by Remainers and defended as nothing to do with Brexit by Leavers. Every trade negotiation gets analyzed through the Brexit lens. Every relationship with Europe gets examined for signs we're going back or staying away. We haven't moved on. We're just pretending we have while continuing to fight the same battles with slightly different language. The government put out a spokesperson response that was pure corporate speak. They talked about resetting relations with the EU at their historic summit, securing deals that are good for jobs, bills, and borders. They mentioned starting negotiations on a food and drink deal to slash red tape. They emphasized putting the national interest first and building closer trading relationships with the EU while also securing trade agreements with the US and India. It's all very reassuring and professional, and completely avoids addressing the fundamental question of whether they are planning to rejoin the customs union by stealth. Which, to be fair, is exactly what a government spokesperson response is supposed to do. But people are noticing. 13 Labour MPs notice enough to vote against their own government's position. Voters are noticing that prices are higher and economic growth is disappointing. Business owners are noticing that trading with Europe is more complicated and expensive than it used to be. And political opponents are noticing that there's a massive opening to attack Labour on this issue, accusing them of plotting to reverse Brexit while claiming they are doing no such thing. It's political quicksand, and every time Starmer tries to step out of it, he just sinks deeper.